I refused their HOA, so they illegally raided my business. Now I'm suing for millions. My name is Lena Harper, and I built Karen's Flowers from nothing. In our small town of Willow Creek, my little shop on Main Street was a haven. Bright roses, delicate lilies, and cheerful daisies lined the shelves, each arrangement a piece of my heart. I'd spent years turning it into a community cornerstone, a place where people came not just for flowers but for comfort, for connection. But the Willow Creek HOA, led by Margaret Voss, had other plans. They saw my shop as a threat to their sterile vision of community standards. And when I refused to bow to their rules, they didn't just push back, they tried to destroy me. It started with petty complaints. My shop sign was too colorful. My window displays were too cluttered. Margaret, with her perfectly pressed blouses and cold smile, would stride in weekly, clipboard in hand, rattling off violations. I wasn't part of their HOA. My shop sat just outside their jurisdiction, but that didn't stop her. She wanted control, and I was the one who wouldn't bend. "Lena," she'd say, her voice dripping with condescension. "Compliance is easier than defiance." I'd smile, nod, and ignore her. My customers loved my shop's charm, and I wasn't about to let Margaret's power trip ruin it. But defiance has a price. One evening, as I arranged a wedding bouquet, the door crashed open. Margaret stood there, flanked by 2 deputies and a handful of HOA board members. "We have a warrant," she declared, thrusting a paper at me. I scanned item signed, vague, a flimsy excuse for code violations. Before I could protest, they tore through my shop. Vases shattered, petals scattered, and my ledger proof of every hard-earned dollar was seized. Customers watched, horrified, as Margaret smirked, directing the chaos like a conductor. Deputy Ryan, a young officer I'd known since he was a kid, looked uneasy but followed orders. My heart pounded, not just from anger but from betrayal. This wasn't just a raid. It was personal. I learned later the warrant was illegal, pushed through by Margaret's connections at the courthouse. She'd fabricated claims of health hazards to justify the raid, knowing I'd been rallying other small businesses to resist her HOA's overreach. My shop wasn't just a target, it was a warning to anyone who dared defy her. But she underestimated me. I wasn't gonna cry and close up shop. I hired a lawyer, Sarah Klein, a sharp woman who'd grown up in Willow Creek and hated Margaret's reign as much as I did. We filed a lawsuit for millions, alleging illegal search, property damage, and emotional distress. The town buzzsome called me a hero, others a troublemaker. The twist came when Ryan, the deputy, reached out. Late one night, he showed up at my door, guilt written across his face. "Lena, I didn't know the warrant was fake," he said, voice shaking. Margaret pressured the sheriff. "I have proof." He handed me a USB drive recordings of Margaret coercing officials, bragging about teaching Lena a lesson. Ryan had been torn, caught between his job and his conscience, but he'd chosen to do what was right. His evidence was a game changer, exposing Margaret's corruption and implicating half the HOA board. Suddenly, my lawsuit wasn't just about my show pit, it was about dismantling a system that bullied anyone who didn't conform. The courtroom was a battlefield. Margaret sat poised, her lawyer spinning tales of my non-compliance, endangering the community. But Sarah was relentless, presenting Ryan's recordings and photos of my wrecked shop. The jury locals who'd felt the HOA's grip themselves listened intently. I testified, voice cracking as I described the shattered vases, the fear in my customers' eyes, the violation of my life's work. Margaret's smugness faltered when Ryan took the stand, his testimony damning her. The town held its breath for the verdict. Came swiftly, guilty. The HOA was ordered to pay $2.3 million in damages. Margaret was removed as president, her reputation in tatters. My shop would survive, maybe even thrive again. But as I stood among the ruins of Karen's Flowers, sweeping up broken glass, victory felt hollow. The money couldn't replace the trust I'd lost in my town, the nights I'd spent sleepless, or the customers who'd stopped coming, scared off by the drama. Ryan's courage had saved me, but it couldn't erase the bitterness. Margaret had wanted to break me, and though she'd failed, the scars remained. Rebuilding would be slow. Some neighbors rallied, bringing flowers to replace the ones destroyed, but others whispered I'd gone too far, that suing was vindictive. I wondered if I'd done the right thing, fighting so hard when it cost me so much. Karen's Flowers was more than a business, it was my defiance, my proof that one person could stand against a machine. But at what cost? The town was divided, friendships strained, and I was left wondering if justice was worth the heartbreak. What would you do if your community turned against you for standing up for what's right? Share your thoughts. Where do you draw the line between justice and peace?